Alrighty, so I finally got a chance to do the review of the last CCO quarterfinal second leg game of this year's CONCACAF Champions League between Club Leon and the Seattle Sounders. And by the way, I actually was supposed to do this a little bit earlier if it wasn't for those dang window updates that I had to pass by when I actually opened my laptop right after when I finished writing down all the notes here on the board. I mean, since my laptop is relatively slow, it took like about 20 minutes to do so in terms of that update to finish, whereas if that actually happened on my fast PC, I would have actually only had to wait like 2 minutes for the update to do so. But that being said, going back to this video itself, not only today we're going to do the review of what happened in this game between the Sounders and Club Leon, but we're also going to be talking about the U.S. Men's National Team Final World Cup qualifier roster that Gregg Berhalter basically announced. And I do apologize if it is relatively small, because when I wrote all the notes here on the board, I didn't realize that I actually need more space than what I basically allow myself to put the Final World Cup qualifier roster. So, especially right here in the bottom, I really kind of had to squeeze in all the names in terms of all these players that are going to be in this U.S. team for this crucial World Cup qualifying period, where there's only 3 games left in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifier, and really this is the do or die period for this U.S. team, and kind of the ultimate judgment to see whether or not if this team have made their amends of what happened back in 2017. Now let's actually talk about the game that happened tonight between Club Leon and the Seattle Sounders. And the good news for the Sounders is that they did not repeat the same mistake that New England made in this one, which is completely capitulate when they go down to Mexico to play a Liga MX opponent. As in this game, they actually got a 1-1 draw against Club Leon, and I actually forgot to put the aggregate score here. The Sounders, of course, win 4-1 in terms of the aggregate score. But in terms of how this game looks, it kind of looked very similar to the game between Pumas and New England, though the difference is at least the Sounders were a little bit better in terms of the defensive end, and Leon decided to kind of be very wasteful in terms of some of their chances that they had in this one. But early on in this game, it was all Leon. Like, the possession was 80-20 in favor of them. Though, I will say that the Sounders did a good job in terms of limiting the chances. I mean, one of the big issue that New England had yesterday was that they were allowing way too many chances for Pumas to basically get a goal. And early on, they only allowed one shot, the Sounders, to Leon in the first 15 minutes. But unfortunately, that shot almost led to the opening goal for Leon, as a breeze would actually struck the post on the header there. Actually, I think Fry actually made a save here to tip that one on to the post, but there was no doubt that was a huge moment in the game, because if that was 1-0 in favor of Leon, I'm pretty sure every MLS fans are basically saying, oh, well, here we go again. This is basically like yesterday all over again, where we're going to see another MLS team completely capitulate and choke a 3-0 advantage heading into the second leg down in Liga MX, or down in Mexico. But at that point, I think everybody would also say that this kind of looks like a repeat of yesterday Pumas versus New England match, and that it just feels like the Sounders was just parking the bus, which is exactly what I was not hoping they won't do. I mean, I get what Brian Schmetzer is trying to do, maybe trying to sit deep a little bit and trying to counter, because they had a relatively good success against Leon in the last match doing that. But in this game, they definitely did not have that same success as they did in the first leg. Teselo then puts one wide from close range in the 23rd minute, before Rodon actually had the Sounders' first real opportunity in the 32nd minute, as he hits that one straight to Cota. But then Morris, I thought he should have scored here, as he missed wide despite being wide open at the top of the 12-yard box. And that moment really reminds me of the Buxa miss in that game between the Revs and Pumas. Remember in that game where early on Buxa had a big opportunity to give the Revs a 1-0 lead when he was wide open at the 12-yard box, but he missed wide? This is pretty much the same situation. Though I will say that at least in this situation, maybe Morris did kind of take that one off of his weak foot, which, I don't know if he need to take that one off of his weak foot. Maybe he just needs to take a touch and get it onto his strong foot to strike that one. But yeah, it's pretty clear that he wasn't able to strike it in off of his weak foot, and that was a huge moment for Seattle to nick a goal that really kind of put this tie to bed. But just 3 minutes later, there was a huge shout for a penalty from Leon that was not given. But then just 7 minutes later, and as we thought that we were head to halftime 0-0 between both of these teams, a penalty was given on the other end, as the Sounders got a penalty after Tessillo brought down João Paulo in the box. Absolutely the right call. I mean, it was pretty clear that Leon defender Tessillo clearly brought down João Paulo in the box, and that let Montero, who has just been so ice cold in the penalty spot in this early season, as he puts that penalty away to give the Sounder a massive 1-0 lead and do something that New England probably should have done yesterday, which is find that goal to really put this tie out of bed. Because with that goal, not only the fact that the Sounders have that away goal, but Leon will have to score 5 in the second half to do so. So we go to the second half with the Sounders leading 1-0. Mena had a chance in the 47th minute, but he hits one straight to Fry before Davila did the same thing there in the 54th minute. Leon was continued to press to try to get a goal back. Omarno tried to stab one in from close range, but he missed that one wide before Fry had to deny Omarno as he tipped that shot over the bar. I mean, Stefan Fry had a monster game in this one, and it should be. I mean, he is considered one of the best, if not the best goalkeeper in MLS, and he definitely was earning his paycheck, making some big save in this one. But there was no doubt the shots were heavily in favor of Leon, 13-4 at that point. But that as the game goes on, you know, it just feels like Leon chances of potentially complete this incredible comeback was all for naught, and you know their fans kind of started to get very frustrated of all these missed chances, so they decided to basically do that redacted chant again. And I'm not gonna say what that redacted chant is because you guys probably know what it is, and yeah, unsurprisingly the game of course took a pause because of this. And you know, after when the game does resume, the Sounders were no doubt in full park the bus mode, which, you know, at that point I would agree that they decided to do so because, you know, you have a 5-goal advantage. There's no need to open yourself up in this game, and that unless something dramatic of course would happen, which, you know, we did kind of saw that in yesterday's game. I just feel like this still was the right decision. Like, I don't mind MLS team decide to go full park the bus mode like late in the game when they have a massive advantage. But what I do mind is they did it from minute 1, and that was kind of the mistake that New England did yesterday. In some way, I feel like the Sounders kind of made the same mistake in this one, though, you know, eventually they did kind of realize that probably is not going to be the way for them to win this game or even get a result in this game, and they did kind of start to open themselves a little bit, and as a result they got themselves a penalty and got that crucial goal to really put this tie away. Though, as I said, as the time winds down, the Leon attack, you can see they were getting frustrated. Like, not only the fans were very frustrated, but also the players, they just looked like they were out of ideas. Like, they just cannot break down the Sounders backline that was very organized in this one, much more organized than what we saw from the Revs yesterday. And they also started to look very one-dimensional, just kind of crossing the ball into the box, which when you face against a Sounders team that has a lot of tall players that can deal with those crosses, that is probably not the recipe to trying to break down the Sounders defense. Martinez then puts one into the stands from long range in the 83rd minute before Fry had to make a big save again, denying Omarno from close range. Then he actually robbed Meneses from close range in the 87th minute, and I thought that was probably the best opportunity that Leon has had ever since that near chance in the 3rd minute when they struck the post, and probably the biggest save that Fry has to make, because so far most of the save that Fry has made has been pretty routine. This one he really had some cat-like reflexes to deny Meneses, who hits that one from close range, only for Fry to make a big save to keep this a 1-0 game. And there was no doubt that the Sounders, you know, they definitely are happy that they're now realize that they move on, but you know deep in the mind of Brian Schmetzer and these Sounders player that they want to get a clean sheet. They want to become part of history of becoming one of the few teams to able to go down to Mexico and get not only a result there but also a win against a Liga MX team. They almost finished the game off in the 90th minute when Rodin went through on goal, but Cota was able to deny him. But unfortunately, the Sounders' chances of a clean sheet and a historic win on the road in Mexico did fall short in the first minute of stoppage time, because Leon finally got the equalizer, and it's Ambris that scores from Ramirez to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But really, that was the last chance of the game, and you know that goal obviously will definitely annoy the Sounders a little bit. Consider again, it was so close in terms of getting a historic win down in Mexico, and even though, you know, this goal didn't really much. I'm pretty sure down the line, if there is, we're going to remember teams that is able to go down to Mexico and get a win against Liga MX's opponent. The Sounders would definitely be in the history book of that, and that again they came so close to do so in this one. But the good news is they are moving on into the semifinal against NYCFC, which means that we are going to indeed have an all semifinal CCL matchup, not only in MLS but also in the Liga MX part, because in the other bracket you got Cruz Azul taking on Pumas. But yeah, this should be that matchup, and alongside with the one between the Sounders versus NYCFC should be a very interesting matchup to see which team, of course, will be representing which. And in some way, it's kind of what CONCACAF wants. Like, you know, as much as I know, in reality, MLS fans want all four team make it to the semifinal and guarantee an MLS team lifting the trophy the very first time. You know deep in mind that CONCACAF does not want that. They want to make sure that this rivalry between both of these leagues is going to continue. And what a way to do so when you have two semifinal where you have both leagues that is just basically playing against each other, and that it basically guarantees that we are going to see a Liga MX versus MLS team in the CONCACAF Champions League final. Now, in terms of the shots in this one, 26 shots compared to the 6 that Seattle has, 3 shots on goal compared to the 8 that Leon has, 8 shots off target compared to the 2 that the Sounders had, 1 shot that was blocked compared to the 10 that Leon has, and possession-wise, 73% possession compared to 27% possession that the Seattle Sounders has in this game. But overall, again, for the Sounders, you know, they'll be a little bit annoyed that they weren't able to keep a clean sheet and get the win, but now with this win, they're one step closer in terms of getting that ultimate goal. And that, you know, in that game against NYCFC, I mean, you know, Seattle has faced a lot of tough opponents so far, but I feel like that game against NYCFC would be the ultimate test. And also, this will be kind of one of the rare time where, for once, I don't have to be very concerned and have to really, truly root for an MLS team in CCL, because anytime when you have two MLS teams facing off against each other in CCL, you know, it gives me a chance to be once again a neutral, and just that, you know, let's the best team win, and let's see which team is going to be representing MLS heading into that CONCACAF Champions League final against the Liga MX opponent. But that being said, let us actually get into talk about the U.S. men's national team final World Cup qualifier roster that Gregg Berhalter announced. Now, I didn't watch the unveil around 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on SportsCenter, because I was still working during that time. But from what I heard, it was kind of awkward the way that they unveil it, which I'm not as surprised, because anytime when something is unveiled on SportsCenter, especially if something relates to soccer that is unveiled in SportsCenter, you know that there's going to be some awkward kind of thing that will occur, or they just don't care whatsoever. I mean, I remember when MLS decided to unveil the full schedule on SportsCenter. I literally had to wait a very long time before they're able to do so. And yeah, I mean, it just shows you that you know ESPN what their prime priority is, and especially what SportsCenter prime priority is. Their prime priority is still going to be talking about the NBA or the NFL, or even now talking about college basketball, because of March Madness is actually happening right now. But in terms of the final World Cup qualifying roster, you know, coming into this World Cup qualifier roster announced, I mean, there was definitely a lot of question because of the way that, you know, the U.S. are going to be very shorthanded heading into these final 3 games. I mean, we know that they're going to have their most important player in Western McKennie not being able to play in this final World Cup qualifying window, and also, so we're potentially not going to see another good attacking player in Gio Reyna, who, by the way, Gio Reyna actually was included in this World Cup qualifier roster, though I would be surprised if he actually plays. Like, from what I heard, it seems like his injury will be enough that he'll pretty much be kept out for the entire part of the World Cup qualifier roster. So it was kind of weird, the fact that Gregg Berhalter still kind of chose him, just maybe as a way that maybe there's a slight hope that Gio Reyna can actually play for this team, or maybe if they're, in case the U.S. find themselves in a very bad situation against Costa Rica in that final World Cup qualifying match, they can basically bring Gio Reyna off the bench and hope that maybe that can rescue them something to get a resort, so that they can, of course, go to Qatar in November. But in terms of the goalkeeping position, you got Ethan Horvath, Sean Johnson, and Zach Steffen. Notice no Matt Turner in the goalkeeping position because Matt Turner is still injured with the refs, and most likely I'm gonna think that Zach Steffen is gonna be the main goalkeeper for this team, at least for all three of this World Cup qualifying run. Then you got Reggie Cannon, Serginho Dest, which, by the way, Serginho Dest, that's also a big question too, because you talk about the U.S. just aren't able to catch any break whatsoever with the injury bug heading into this final World Cup qualifying window. I mean, it's been announced that Dest kind of came off of an injury when he was playing in that Europa League game, and that there's no timeline of how serious that injury is, and that if he isn't going to be available for the next game, there's been whisper that most likely either guys like Joe Scally or even George Bello will most likely take his place. But then you got Aaron Long, Eric Palmer Brown, Anthony Robinson, Miles Robinson, Jake Sands, DeAndre Yedlin, and Walker Zimmerman in terms of the defense. I mean, I'm assuming in terms of the fullback, it's most likely going to be either Anthony Robinson or DeAndre Yedlin, and also not to mention Serginho Dest, although again we don't know the status of Dest and whether or not if he is going to be available in the first game of this crucial 3-game World Cup qualifying window, which, by the way, I think that first game is going to be against Mexico down at the Azteca. But yeah, I mean, when you look at this back line, it is a little bit unnerving, and especially it feels like most likely they're going to go with Robinson, and that is Miles Robinson, that is, and Walker Zimmerman in terms of the center back partnership. And that's not really a bad center back pairing, because both of these guys has done very well in MLS. Though, if you talk to any U.S. men's national team fan, and especially they have their agenda toward MLS players being in the national team, that they're going to be very panicking when they see that lineup. Which, again, if that's the case, then who are you going to go? I mean, you're not going to put James Sands in there, even though I know they tried to do it a couple of times, and I thought he kind of looked a little uncomfortable in some of those World Cup qualifying games that he played. Now, in terms of the midfield, you got Kellen Acosta, Tyler Adams, Gianluca Busio, Luca De La Torre, Jonas Musa, and Christian Roldan, and that's not really a lot of midfielder in this team, and that I feel like that's the least amount of midfielder player that Gregg Berhalter decided to choose heading into this window. Though that being said, when you look at the forward line, you definitely do see some midfielder and also some winger in this spot. You got Brendan Aronson, Paul Arriola, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, Jordan Pete Fook, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, and Tim Ware. And again, Gio Reyna is a huge question mark, and most likely he's not going to be featured. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the defense and also the midfield, but also going forward on the attack, I know a lot of people were surprised not to see Josh Sargent name in this list, and I think it's understandable because Josh Sargent has really not done well, even in the club level with Norwich. I mean, he had that one incredible game a couple of months ago where he scored like a brace to give Norwich the win, but ever since he's basically been invincible, so it kind of makes sense. But that also means that who's going to be that number 9 position, because normally we would say Ricardo Pepi is that guy, but from what I now heard about Pepi, he's not really producing a lot, and he's having a tough time doing his short time with Augsburg. And from I also heard that an unlikely player that has actually been in form heading into this final World Cup qualifying window in Jordan Pifuk, looks like he's going to be the guy that's leading up the line, which I think a couple of months ago you would have never guessed that he would be the guy that is going to be leading the line for this team. But like I said, obviously most likely when you look at the forward group, I guess most likely Paul Arriola will be in one of the position, and then obviously Brendan Aronson is going to be playing the number 10 role, and Pulisic will be in the winger spot. But yeah, when you look at this roster, I don't think this is a bad roster that Gregg Berhalter has, and in some way he's kind of almost getting handcuffed in terms of choosing this roster, because there you can clearly see that the depth is really being tested by this U.S. men's national team, and especially with them have to kind of almost recall some of these guys that are more considered to be on the B team of the U.S. men's national team and now have to step in here because of injuries. This will really test this team of whether or not that, we know that this team does have some good depth, but it's going to be interesting to see whether or not if that's going to come through, and it has to come through because again, this is do or die for the U.S. and that this World Cup qualifier roster that Gregg Berhalter has announced is really the judgment of whether or not if he's going to retain his job as the U.S. men's national team head coach. Because, you know, if the U.S. does not qualify for the World Cup by the end of March, there's no doubt that Gregg Berhalter is going to be fired, and that we're going to once again have that same problem that we were back in 2017, where, yeah, it seems like the program and this national team is once again back in a bad spot, where, and back into the dark days of this country, with the way that they just, for whatever reason, with the amount of talent that they had, and especially with a lot of good youth movement, it was all for naught at the end of the day. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the U.S. men's national team final World Cup qualifier roster that Gregg Berhalter announced? Do you like it? Do you hate it? And also let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the game between Club Leon and the Seattle Sounders? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.